There is a truth that shakes the very foundation of human progress. The greatest enemy of success is not failure, but the fear of failure. This fear has shackled more dreams, destroyed more ambitions, and buried more talents than failure itself ever could. And I tell you, dear listener, if you learn to master this fear, you will unleash a power within you that no obstacle can withstand. Now pause for a moment. Ask yourself this: how many times have you held back? Not because you lacked ability, but because you were afraid of what might go wrong? That is the invisible prison of fear. It is not the bars of iron that hold you. It is the chains in your own mind. And here is the hook. The very moment you dare to challenge that fear, you discover that the chains were made of paper all along. Failure itself is not the problem. Failure is life's way of testing you, of strengthening you, of preparing you for greatness. But fear is the assassin of your potential. It paralyzes your thoughts, it freezes your actions, and it convinces you to surrender before you even begin. So let me ask you directly, are you living your life, or is fear living it for you? Thomas J. Watson Sr., the founder of IBM, once gave a young journalist advice that still echoes like thunder across the ages. He said, "If you want to be successful faster, you must double your rate of failure. Success lies on the far side of failure." Think about that. Success does not come by avoiding failure. It comes by marching straight through it. But here's the question that should pierce your mind. How many failures are you willing to embrace in order to reach your destiny? Every self-made millionaire I have studied, every leader I have observed, had one thing in common. They were not gamblers, but they took calculated risks. They understood that wealth, growth, and achievement stand on the other side of risk. If you never risk, you never rise. And so I challenge you. What is the risk you are avoiding today because of fear? Ask yourself this powerful question whenever fear grips you. What is the worst possible thing that could happen if I go ahead? And then, like J. Paul Getty once advised, make certain that whatever that worst outcome might be, you prepare so that it doesn't happen. That is strategy. That is wisdom. And that is courage in action. Now listen carefully, for this truth will determine your future. Everyone is afraid. Yes, everyone. The difference is not in who feels fear, but in who decides to act in spite of fear. So let me press you again. Will you let fear command you, or will you command fear? Ralph Waldo Emerson, the great philosopher, once gave us the golden key. Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. This is not poetry. It is a law of life. Each time you step boldly into the unknown, fear shrinks, courage grows, and your confidence expands like a muscle. But here is the magnetic hook. Every act of courage you take today builds the foundation of fearlessness for tomorrow. Think back to the great missions of mankind. One of the most unforgettable moments came during Apollo 13. The astronauts' lives hung in the balance. Panic was rising in mission control. And in that moment of uncertainty, Eugene Kranz, head of mission control, roared with unshakable conviction, "Failure is not an option." Now tell me, what would happen if you lived every day of your life with that same declaration burning inside you? Failure is not an option when it comes to your dreams. Failure is not an option when it comes to your destiny. Failure is not an option when your future and your family depend on the fire within you. And here's the irresistible truth. Once you make up your mind that failure is not an option, your entire psychology changes. You stop hesitating. You stop procrastinating. You stop doubting. Instead, you begin to move, to act, to seize opportunities, and to create momentum. So I ask you once again, are you ready to declare that failure is no longer an option in your life? This declaration is more than words. It is a commitment, a covenant with your future self. The moment you embrace it, unseen forces begin to assist you. Doors open, people appear, opportunities align, and most importantly, your own inner strength awakens. But beware, for fear will whisper again. It will try to remind you of your past mistakes, of the risks ahead, of the possibility of pain. And in that moment, you must silence it with action. So here is your practical challenge. Write down the one thing you fear doing the most in pursuit of your dream. And before the day ends, take the first bold step toward it. Ask yourself, What excuse will you allow fear to sell you today? And then decide, never again. Because the man or woman who masters fear masters life. The one who acts in spite of trembling knees and racing heart is the one who writes history, builds empires, and creates legacies that outlive them. And here is the hook that will shake your soul. Fear is temporary, but regret is eternal. If you surrender to fear, you will live with regret for the rest of your life. But if you conquer fear, you will die knowing you lived fully, boldly and with purpose. So I say to you now, with all the conviction of a lifetime of study, do not let fear of failure rob you of the life you are destined to live. Face it, embrace it, rise above it, and remember forever, the greatest treasure of your life lies just beyond the wall of fear. You see, once a man decides that failure is not an option, his entire world begins to shift. The ground beneath his feet feels stronger, the air around him feels lighter, and opportunities that once seemed distant suddenly come closer. This is not magic. It is the power of a mindset free from fear. Now ask yourself this: what would your life look like if you lived without fear for just 1 year? Imagine the businesses you would start, the relationships you would build, the skills you would master, and the wealth you would create. Most people never taste this kind of life because they let fear whisper louder than their dreams. But here is the truth that will ignite your soul. Every time you take action in spite of fear, you declare to the universe that you are worthy of greatness. Fear thrives on hesitation. The longer you wait, the stronger fear grows. But the moment you act, fear weakens, collapses, and fades like a shadow before the rising sun. So let me challenge you. What decision have you been postponing that, if you made it today, could change the entire direction of your life? Great fortunes have always been built by men and women who acted boldly when others hesitated. The timid wait for certainty, but certainty never comes. The courageous create their own certainty by taking action and adjusting along the way. Now I must ask you, are you waiting for perfect conditions, or are you ready to create them yourself? In my years of studying the most successful individuals, one lesson became crystal clear. Fear is nothing more than imagination misused. It is your own mind playing tricks, painting pictures of disaster that rarely, if ever, come true. And here's the hook. The same imagination that enslaves you with fear can liberate you with vision. If you dare to direct your imagination toward possibility instead of catastrophe, you will find doors opening where walls once stood. Your mind is the workshop of your destiny. Use it to design the life you desire, not the prison you dread. Think of the giants of industry, the leaders of nations, the pioneers of invention. Did they not face fear? Of course they did, but they chose to act again and again, until fear had no power left. So tell me, will you feed your fear, or will you feed your faith? When you feed fear, you shrink. When you feed faith, you expand. And the world makes room for the one who refuses to bow to doubt. There is another truth I must share with you. Failure itself is not the end. In fact, failure is feedback. It is a lesson wrapped in temporary defeat. Every failure carries within it the seed of an equal or greater benefit. But here is the vital question. Do you have the eyes to see that seed, or will you let fear blind you? The story of every great achiever is written in failures overcome. Edison failed 10,000 times before creating the light bulb. But did he call them failures? No, he called them steps closer to success. So I ask you, are you willing to take enough steps to find your own light? Remember this always. The man who fears failure has already failed. But the man who embraces failure as a teacher, as a stepping stone, is destined to rise. And here comes the irresistible hook. Fear is not a sign to stop. It is a signal to move forward. Whenever you feel fear clutching at your heart, that is the universe pointing you toward growth. Fear only shows up when you are standing at the edge of expansion. So instead of retreating, step boldly forward. The moment you do, you will find new strengths awakening within you. You will discover allies you never expected, resources you never imagined, and courage you never thought you had. But do not mistake me. Fear will always try to return. It is a lifelong opponent, yet every battle you win against fear makes you stronger for the next. So let me ask you now, how many battles are you willing to fight to win the war for your destiny? The world is waiting for men and women who will rise above fear, who will dare to act where others freeze. These are the ones who shape history, who build empires, who leave legacies that echo through generations. And you must decide, will you be one of them? Or will you be another soul buried in the graveyard of unrealized dreams? The graveyard, my friend, is the richest land in the world. It holds books never written, inventions never built, businesses never launched, and dreams never lived, all because of fear. But you, yes, you listening right now, you still have time. You still have breath. You still have the chance to rise above fear and claim the life meant for you. So here is your commandment for today. Do not let fear steal one more moment of your life. Write your goals, take your steps, face your risks, and declare once again with unshakable conviction, failure is not an option. Because the man or woman who says these words and lives by them becomes unstoppable, and the world bows to the unstoppable. There is a moment in every person's life when the decision to act or to shrink back determines the destiny of their future. That moment is not far away. It is right here, right now, pressing upon your soul. And here is the great secret. If you hesitate, fear grows. If you move, fear dies. Think of it. How many opportunities have passed before your eyes simply because you allowed fear to whisper, "Not yet, not you, not now"? And how many victories could have been yours had you taken one bold step in defiance of that voice? Every failure you fear is but a shadow on the wall, larger than life, but powerless when confronted by action. The world bows not to the fearful, but to those who advance despite trembling hands and uncertain hearts. Remember this, the men and women who left their names written in history were not fearless. They simply refused to allow fear to sit in the driver's seat of their destiny. When I once sat in silence, pondering the stories of countless millionaires, I found a pattern more consistent than any formula of mathematics. Each one of them was willing to risk failure so completely that failure itself became their servant rather than their master. Here is a truth you must burn into your heart. Every setback is a setup for a greater comeback. But if you quit before you rise, the story ends unfinished, and greatness is left unwritten. Ask yourself right now, are you willing to endure a little ridicule, a little doubt, a little pain for the prize of a lifetime? Or will you surrender to the invisible chains of fear and remain where you are? There is no growth without discomfort, no progress without pressure, no triumph without trial. So why run from the very conditions that were designed to make you great? Each act of courage you take strengthens the muscle of faith within you. And faith is the antidote to fear, the golden weapon placed in your hands to conquer the impossible. You cannot wait for certainty, because certainty never arrives at your doorstep wrapped in ribbons. You must step into uncertainty and carve certainty with your own hands. Think of the builder, who lays the foundation brick by brick with no guarantee of the final vision. Yet as the walls rise, confidence rises, and at last, a palace stands where once there was only dust. So it is with your destiny. Every risk taken, every fear faced, every doubt challenged builds the palace of your dreams. Now pause and reflect. What is the fear holding you hostage at this very moment? Is it the fear of rejection, the fear of poverty, the fear of ridicule, or the fear of simply not being enough? Name it, and its power weakens. Face it, and its grip loosens. Emerson's words thunder through the ages. Do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. Each time you obey that law, you prove to yourself that fear was never the master. It was always the mirage. Imagine a young entrepreneur with nothing but a dream and trembling hands. He faces bankers who laugh, friends who doubt, family who whisper of madness. At that moment, he has two choices: to believe their fear or to believe in his vision. And if he dares to act on his vision, history rewards him with the crown of triumph. This is not mere imagination. It is the true story of countless men and women who built fortunes from nothing but faith and boldness. And it can be your story if you choose to write it with courage rather than hesitation. Fear whispers, "You are not ready." Courage answers, "Neither was anyone else when they began." Fear says, What if you fail? Courage responds, what if I succeed beyond my wildest dreams? Do not wait for fear to vanish. It will not. But act in spite of fear, and suddenly, fear loses its voice. The path to mastery is not lined with guarantees, but with opportunities disguised as risks. The only way forward is through action, and the only true enemy is hesitation. Think of it. A ship cannot be steered while it is anchored. You must raise the anchor of fear and set sail into the unknown seas if you wish to. Discover new lands. Even the great explorers of history would have lived and died in obscurity had they stayed safe in the harbor. But because they braved storms and darkness, we remember their names centuries later. And so it will be with you. If you rise and face your fear, generations to come will speak of you as the one who dared. Do not despise small beginnings. Every giant was once a trembling child. Every champion was once a hesitant beginner. It is not perfection that leads to victory, but persistence. And persistence is born when fear is ignored and action is taken again and again. Let these words strike you deeply. Failure is not the end. It is the tuition you pay for the privilege of success. And every great achievement has been purchased with the coins of many failures. So let failure be your teacher, but never your jailer. Let mistakes be your mentors, but never your masters. Today, you stand at the crossroads once more. One path is lined with comfort, excuses, and fear. It leads to mediocrity. The other is rugged, uncertain, filled with risk, but it leads to greatness. Which path will you choose? Pause no longer, for time is not your servant. It is your master, and it waits for no man. The moment to act is always now, and as you act, remember these words like fire in your veins. Failure is not an option. It never was, and it never will be.